Feature Friday, all my quilting friends. Welcome back to my sewing studio. It's great to have you guys here with me for another week. I sure appreciate you being here. Today I want to go over one of the many editing features that we have available on our robotic system, and I may take the next couple weeks to kind of go over the different editing features that we have available to us. We have a lot of new Butler owners out there and people that have had questions about different ways to use their editing features. So I just want to go over each one a little bit in detail so that maybe you find a new way to do something, or you've been doing something one way and you didn't know you could do it a different way and it might be easier for you. So I just want to show you the way I do things, or what possibilities that you have available to you in your editing features. Today I'm going to go over the move feature. So when you put a pattern into a pattern box, you can move it into different locations within that pattern box a number of different ways. You may be only doing it one way, but I want to show you the different ways you can do that. So let's turn around and look at our robotic screen and we can work with that feature. All right, guys, here we have my robotics display, and you can see in the orange, I've just got my safe area set, and I loaded this cute little rabbit so that we could watch him move around our quilting area. We are in edit here on the left-hand side of our display, and when we're in edit, we've got all of our great features over here that will allow us to manipulate our design. Today we're going to work with our move feature. And your move feature is on the inner ribbon here, and it's the second one down. It's got a little square with a crisscross that has arrows on the ends. So we're going to highlight that one, and when we highlight it, the background turns white and the icon turns orange. We also get a whole slew of buttons down the side and across the bottom for us to be able to use to work with our move feature so that we can take our rabbit and move him around our design area. So I want to show you how those work so that you can use this function a little bit easier. The first one I want to show you guys are the design buttons that have the little triangles with the line in the middle. And you have one on your vertical and one on your horizontal. And when you use these, it is going to center your design on your vertical and on your horizontal. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can see, my little rabbit's up here in the left-hand corner. If I press my center button for vertical, and I'm going to pull out so you can see it all happen at once. When I press that, my rabbit moves to the center of the vertical on my pattern box. If I press the center button on my horizontal, my rabbit is going to move to the center on my horizontal. And because I've used both of those buttons, my rabbit is in the center of my entire pattern box. So if you're trying to center a design in a pattern box, those are the best buttons to use to get it right in the middle of the pattern box that you have. Now the other buttons we have next to that are our increment buttons. So it looks like a little triangle with a square around it. And we've got a left and a right on our horizontal, and we have an up and a down on our horizontal. And these increment buttons, when we press them, will just move our design a little teeny tiny bit, one press at a time. So when we go up, our design's just moving a little bit up. When we press down, it's moving just a little bit down. The same thing will happen with our left and right. If we press our right increment button, our design's going to move a little bit to the right, one press at a time. If we press our button to the left, it'll move to the left, one increment at a time. Now this increment is set in your settings screen, and we have it set at, I believe, 0.1 of an inch. But if you need to change that, you can do that. You can come into your settings button, which looks like the gears on the left-hand side of your display. Highlight that. Go to your parameters tab at the top of your display and highlight that. And when we come over to the right-hand side of our display, we have the words Move Increment. If we go to the coordinating box, you can see that it's set at a 0.1. That is the increment that it is set to move right now using those increment arrows. If we want to change that and have it move a little bit more every time we press that button, maybe we could change it to 0.2 and it'll move a little bit more every time we press that button. So let's give that a try. I'm going to hit my green check mark. I'm going to go over to the left-hand side of my display and hit edit again. There's our rabbit in the box. I'm going to come over here and hit my move function again. We have all of our little buttons. And let's go ahead and move him to the right. And he's skipping much further every time I press that button. So you have the option of increasing the amount of increments these little buttons will move your pattern within your pattern box. You can change it how you like. The next buttons we have are little triangles with just a line on the end, one on the left and one on the right horizontally, one facing upward and one facing downward on the vertical. When we press these, it's going to move our design to the top, to the bottom, all the way to the left, or all the way to the right of our pattern box. So let's look at that. When I press the button to go all the way to the top of our pattern box, our rabbit skips to the very top of our pattern box. If we press the button to go all the way to the bottom of our pattern box, our rabbit skips and places itself to the very bottom of our pattern box. We can use our left button here, and when we press that, our rabbit's all the way to the left of our pattern box. And if we use our button for the right, our rabbit goes all the way to the right of our pattern box. So you can use these to quickly move your design to certain areas of your pattern box to get it somewhere you want, and really place your designs quickly. Now, as you can see, my little rabbit is highlighted with a bunch of different colored nodes or circles. We can use our touch screen for our display and actually move our design as well. And our move is the green circle that's in the middle of our design. If we put our finger on that green circle, we will be able to just drag our finger around the display and move our rabbit where we want it. So I'm going to put my finger on the green circle in the middle of my rabbit, and I can now drag my rabbit around the display and place him where I want. So this is a great way for you to put your pattern where you want it if you're more comfortable using a touch screen instead of all these buttons. You can also quickly place a design in an area where you'd like it, and then you can use your buttons to fine-tune it just a little bit. See, I moved him so that he's just about sitting on where my crosshairs are. So that's a great way to move as well. You can touch that green node and move your item where you want on the display. We also have this button here that says Move Start. So we can actually move our design and have our start, which is our little green circle here in the corner, be in a certain location. So if I wanted to have my pattern start at this little point here on this quilt top, I could use my Move Start and anchor it here at this point. Let me show you. We're going to hit our Move Start button, and we get a pop-up that says move the machine to where you would like to start the pattern and then press OK. So I'm going to move my machine to that corner where I'd like my design to start. And then I can press my green check mark, and my rabbit has skipped into place so that it's starting exactly where my crosshairs are, which is where my needle is hovering now. So that's a great way for some precise positioning to get your design to start exactly where you want it to. Just remember, it may not be centered in your square because your start point and your stop point may not be exactly where it would center a design. So you have to keep that in mind when you're working in spaces that are small and you're trying to center something. It may be smarter if you're trying to center a design to actually make a pattern box here and then center the design using our center buttons to get that rabbit in the center of that little square. But this is a great way to put a start point where you want. So we've got all of those options. Now, what if we had more than one design in our box at a time? Let's go ahead and multiply our rabbit a couple times by hitting our plus mark here. I've got a second rabbit and a third rabbit. Now, as long as our design is highlighted with our little box and our nodes, we can move it where we'd like to. And you can touch on each design separately and move them around separately within your pattern box. So you can work with each one individually, and as long as it's highlighted, you can either use your touch function or you can use all of your little buttons here. But if you want to move them as a group instead of singularly, you can use your merge button over here on the right-hand side of your display to make them all one piece. So I'm going to merge these three rabbits together. And now instead of being individual rabbits, they're one big group. So if I touch on the move node, the green node in the center, and move, all of my rabbits move at one time. I can move them down with my little button over here and they move all as a group. So it's just a matter of how you're working with your patterns, if you're working with single items, or if you've merged them together and working with them as a group, you can do it both ways. I hope that's given you guys a little bit of information on how your move function works. You may have been doing things one way and you're very comfortable with it, and I say stick with that. But if you'd like to try something different, I hope that's given you a couple of options to try different ways on how to move your patterns in your pattern box. And maybe things might be a little bit easier if you try something different. There's no right way or wrong way to do things. It's just what works best for you. When we're using our display, we need to keep in mind that our hands need to be as clean as possible. We don't want to leave oils and things behind on our screen. So from time to time, you need to make sure that you are cleaning your screen because we leave fingerprints and our natural oils behind on our display, and we want to make sure that it stays as clean as possible. I use these cleansing wipes that you would use for your glasses. And I also have a glasses wipe that I use. So keep that in mind as general maintenance. You want to just wipe down your screen to make sure that you're not leaving all those fingerprints behind. Just a helpful hint. You don't have to do it all the time, but it is nice to have a nice clear and clean screen. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.